Welcome to the Walk Talks podcast, a resource produced by Southland Christian Ministries located in Ringgold, Louisiana. Our purpose is to provide you with daily devotions so that you can faithfully grow in your relationship with Christ each and every day. We hope these truths will be an encouragement to you as you hear from God's Word today.
Welcome to Walk Talk. This is Mike Graham. I hope that you are having a fantastic day. I actually recorded several of these podcasts earlier, but unfortunately I recorded them to a device that would not record. So here we go again. Today I'd like to just take some time and share my testimony with how the Lord saved me and how the Lord brought me to Southland. Growing up, I grew up in a youth pastor's home. My dad was youth pastor, associate pastor for many years down in South Louisiana. And so I have grown up in Louisiana pretty much most of my life. And so I do claim Louisiana as my home. But when I was young, growing up in children's church, going to a Christian school, having obviously Christian parents, I knew from a very early age of what the gospel was. I do recall later, was in children's church. I believe it was on a Wednesday night. I don't remember the exact date. There we were preached about the gospel. I remember the preacher was Pat Newman. He preached the gospel as he had many times before, and I came under conviction of that I needed to do that. And I remember going forward and talking to one of the children's church workers there, and it was Randy Bruner. I remember talking with him and him kind of going over the gospel again. And I did pray at that point and asked the Lord to save me. I believe I was probably about maybe 6, 7 years old. And I do remember clearly at that point knowing that I needed to be saved, knowing that I could not save myself and that Christ was the only way of salvation. But throughout the years, I really didn't understand and know what to do with my sin. And I didn't understand why I continued to sin. I just kind of assumed that I would, um, I wouldn't have a desire to sin as a Christian. And so I got really confused as I got older. And I do remember on July 20th, 1994, we had already moved here to Southland. My dad had become the camp director here, and Brother Tom Farrell preached a message, and I remember being convicted, but I remembered as a young man making a profession of faith, but at the same time, I knew that I still struggled with sin and disobeying my parents and being prideful, selfish, lying. It was all those things that we all struggle with, but I didn't know what to do with it. And I thought, well, maybe I'm not saved. Maybe that's why I have those desires still to sin. And so I remember that night, my sister, I saw her come out of my dad's office with my mom, and she was crying, and I was like, what happened to her? Like, did she just get, in trouble, or what's going on? And she said that she just got saved. Well, that really threw me for a loop there because I was like, oh no, my sister is a pretty great person, and I was like, if she's not saved, if she wasn't saved, well, good grief. I know I'm a bad kid, and I know I do wrong all the time. So, man, I just struggle with it. But I remember standing there in the laundry room in our trailer here on the camp property, and just not sure what to do. Just did not know. And I remember my mom walked by. The laundry room was dark. She walked by, and she's like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, I remember just crying, like, oh, I don't know that I'm saved. And so it was July 20th, 1994. I do remember that specific date that my mom took me into her room and again showed me the gospel. And I prayed and I asked the Lord to save me. Now, here's what I don't know. I don't know if I was saved at age 7 or if I was saved at age 10. But I do know this. I do know that the only thing that I can trust in, that I am trusting in, is Jesus Christ and the work that he did to restore my relationship with God, that there's nothing that I can do on my own, and that everything was by God through Jesus Christ. And so I don't know that if I was what specific day I was saved. I do know that I was baptized after both of those occasions, and I do uh, I do know for sure, and that today I am 100% sure that I am going to heaven. And so that was kind of my salvation. And as I continue to grow and walk with the Lord, and I continue to struggle with sin and continue to just battle the fact that I have a flesh, and so there were some specific times throughout my teenage years that I knew I struggled with sin, and it was probably later when I was talking to an evangelist friend of ours, Kevin Brownfield, that he was able to really share with me how the sin struggle is common to all people, and that it was nothing new that I was experiencing, but that we could have victory through Christ, and that every day we can get up and cast our dependence on the Lord, pray, and ask the Lord for help to continue to walk through and walk victoriously in our Christian life. And I would say it was probably about then, about 15 years old, that I really started to see some victories in my life and understand how God can, uh, through His Spirit, help me get victories. And so that was a really a kind of a critical point in my life where I started to grow. At that same point, there was a man that was very influential in my life. His name was Ed Bowen, and actually Ed Bowen just passed away just a couple of days ago. And that the Lord used in that particular time in my life to really help me to um, make my walk with Christ my own. And so from there, the Lord moved our family to Kansas and Olathe, Kansas, when in 1999, and that was a big transition for me. I really wasn't quite ready to do that, to move away from my friends and what I had known here. But the Lord knew what was best, and I'm thankful that in that process, the Lord kind of helped me even continue to grow in my walk and overcome some sins. And I was there for about 2 years, and with my family as they started this church. And I went to college. I went to Bob Jones University after high school, and then right after that, I went to seminary in Heart of America Seminary in Kansas City. And it was there that I um, almost became a police officer, and the Lord providentially allowed me to go through that process to become a police officer. But I just shy of going into the academy. I did a lot of the testing and psych evaluations and polygraphs and all that kind of stuff. But the Lord used a friend of mine, Caleb Wood, to present kind of an opportunity that he and I discussed about coming down and working with him in a lawn care business and helping out at camp. And so the Lord used that to bring me back to Southland in 2009 with my family, my wife, and my oldest son, Ian, at the time. And so since 2009, the Lord has graciously allowed us to be here and to serve here. I'm so thankful for those who have had an impact in my life throughout those years. I can specifically think of several people. My dad, number one, who just constantly poured into me, prayed for me, and my mom as well. I thank the Lord for my grandma, who was the camp cook here, who constantly prays for me, and even just watching her minister here at the camp and just her servant's heart was something that I continue to aspire to. And again, I thank the Lord for Mr. Bowen, who put into me. He taught me how to work even more. He insisted on I work with excellence. So I'm grateful for how the Lord placed people in my life throughout those years that I didn't know that I needed at the time. Family friends, uh, pastors. And so I can't thank the Lord enough for how He providentially put people in my life that I needed to help steer me in my walk with the Lord. So that's kind of a brief synopsis of how I got here to Southland and how the Lord saved me when I was a young man. So I pray that this will be an encouragement to you to continue to walk with the Lord, to with those people that are in your life right now, view that as from the Lord. Thank the Lord for it, and may the Lord continue to bless you, grow you, and as you walk with Him today and the rest of your life. So today, have a most incredible and fantastic day. I look forward to talking to you next time. For now, this is Mike Graham. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening to the Walk Talks podcast. We trust that what you've heard today has challenged your walk with God. It is our prayer that through this podcast, every listener would strive to become more like Christ and faithfully live for Him each and every day. Join us next time, and God bless.